Hello and welcome to another episode of the Deceptive Reality Podcast. My name's Nick, and with me, as always, and encouraging me to do the name right, is the ruthful Bert.
And he got my name right. Listen, we're on fire this week, boy.
Yeah.
We got the name of the podcast right. We got my name right.
Yep. Yeah. Got my name right. That's usually easy.
Some would say, especially right now with our super dark black background, that we're a little creepy.
Avoid. We are creepy. I like it.
I mean, listen, Nick, we had our great comment this week. Appreciate the young lady that clearly sent this that said, these podcasters are a little creepy. Can't watch this. Goodbye.
Okay, rude. You could have just left quietly out the back.
Could have just left. Could have just been like, you know what, I'm clicking out. You know, as rude as people want to be, I find it funny because it helps us. It helps us, folks. Yeah. That doesn't hurt us.
Yeah, no, I actually don't mind. I don't find that rude. That's everyone's prerogative to watch or not watch what they don't want to.
Oh, I mean,
I just think they're missing out. That's just me.
Yeah, exactly. I find it rude because you could have just, I don't think I've ever left a comment on someone, even when I think they're creepy.
Yeah. Maybe I watch things for that. I don't know.
I mean, listen, some people's into that kind of thing. What'd you say I was this week, Nick? I know you said encouraging.
Yeah. Ruthful.
Ruthful. Is that like the opposite of ruthless?
Yeah, actually, it kind of is, really. A little bit. Good guess. I wasn't even thinking that.
Man.
But what it means is kind and compassionate.
That would definitely be the opposite.
Yeah, that's definitely the opposite. That's probably where that came from.
Listen.
See the good historical mind going right there?
Listen, folks, I'm not just the comic relief. I'm also borderline genius.
Undisputed genius champion.
Nick is the
of
bona
the
fide
supernatural
genius.
world. Oh, I wish. I mean, you almost lost me on the moon episode. I couldn't keep up with all the science there.
I couldn't keep up with the science on it, Nick.
Yeah,
I couldn't either.
A lot on the go on that episode.
There was a lot. That episode was by far probably the most complex that we've ever had. By far.
It was the most contentious as well because I was like, no. And then I was like, maybe.
Couple episodes later, you're like, man, there's something to that. Hold on. Listen, my podcast kind of work around that.
And then you see in the newspaper, old man yells at the moon.
There was actually a report that I saw. May have said this on a podcast already. I can't remember. But they believe now that the moon has a little moon inside of it now. That's the theory.
Oh, it's like those Russian nesting moons then.
Kinda. They believe that's why it rang like a bell.
I think you did say this before.
Yep. Though there is people that say, they do say, they didn't actually say that, to which I go, just go to the NASA papers. It's not like I made that up, okay? I make plenty of stuff up. That's not one of them. You can actually go to the NASA papers to see that one.
You can verify this.
Cheesy Pete's. The amount of people that want to argue in our comments is hilarious. I just let them do their thing now. I don't even try to comment. I'm just like, whatevs.
I could have swore for the life of me you were going to say that the moon was made of cheese.
I mean,
because that's how he's just messing with me now. So
it could be made of cheese, Nick. We don't know. We've never tested that
strongly
theory.
It's not us. Surely someone has tasted the moon.
Here we go. I'm going to have to make another episode where someone
the
out
moon
there
is
trying
cheese.
to sniff the moon. Exactly. Who was it? Neil deGrasse Tyson said that. No, it wasn't him. It was an astronaut that said that
probably Neil Armstrong.
Nope.
No?
Wasn't him.
Buzz Aldrin.
Wasn't him. It was a newer age astronaut.
Okay.
But he said, maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson quoted him. I can't remember. Anyway, he said that the space smelt like burned steak or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard that. And that's why I had high hopes for Starlight Coke, because it was supposed to be the taste of space. And I thought, it might be steaky.
I showed
it wasn't, but it was delicious.
I showed you my new cooker.
You did.
You cannot burn a steak in that one, Nick. You can't burn one.
Oh, so you can't make space in that.
You cannot. It's actually pretty interesting. This today, because it's Memorial Day when we're recording this.
Yeah.
My parents was over, and I cooked everything we had today, meat wise, in that little cooker. For anyone that doesn't know, I forget the name of it. It's called I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong. A Drio, D-R-E-O.
Drio.
It's a Drio chef maker. Now, what makes it so cool is there's a water reservoir on it, and it's convection, but every piece of meat within reason. You push a probe into it, and artificial intelligence has learned the best rates to cook everything. So you tell it exactly how you want the meat done, and it cooks it to perfection every time.
And AI is just doing everything for us now. It is fantastic.
Here's what's crazy, and I'm a little offended by it. I bought this oven, and it cooks better than me. That's the worst part.
It's a one-trick pony. That's all it's got to do.
Here's what's insane.
If you just had to cook, you'd be better than the machine.
That is true. Here's what's insane, though. So we get this bad boy, and I'm like, you know what? It'll be able to cook it perfectly. Like my sous vide machine will get it perfect, exactly however you want it. I can cook it in a sous vide, but it's not going to be able to sear it as good as moi. Okay.
Right.
So it sears meat also.
Oh, wow.
Don't even let me try to explain how it's doing that, because I literally have no clue. I couldn't tell you how it does it, but it cooks it all the way through, and it tells you on the front cooking, and then at the end it says pre-seared. So it's doing some kind of magic, and then it sears it. It finishes it. So like you pull a steak out, you run your knife across it, and you hear that like hard, almost
scraping, tingy
like
noise.
Scraping. But then when you run your knife through it, it just falls right in like butter.
Well, that's it, fellas. Men have been replaced on this planet. We're no longer needed for this.
We really have been. It's kind of sick. But today it cooked pork chops, steaks. The other night I made salmon. Jess wanted salmon.
Oh, wow.
We did baked potatoes in it. I think I've done. Oh, and I did ribs. Get this.
Oh.
Ribs in a sous vide takes about 18 hours. So,
holy moly.
Yeah, it takes forever. Like for perfect ribs, like to where you take the bone, you just turn it and it pulls right out. That sous vide is 18 hours. So,
wow.
I'm like, this thing won't be able to do ribs as good because, I mean, it's 18 hours in a sous vide and it's saying 2 hours. There's no way. So you put the ribs inside of aluminum foil.
Right.
And then you push the probe through the aluminum foil into the, in between two bones, two ribs. You put it in there for 2 hours. It does some type of witchcraft. I don't know exactly what it's doing.
Oh.
But then it goes through steps. So it's like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, all the way to step 6. And then it stops and it goes, pull the ribs out and put your glaze on top, whatever you want your glaze to be.
Yeah.
And then it says, put it back in. I'm like, oh, it's about to burn this glaze. So I put the glaze on. I'm like, listen, we're testing it. Listen, if it comes out crappy, just go show them a better cook. Okay. And I put that glaze on.
You're really hoping for that at that stage.
Listen, I put the freaking ribs back in, put it in there. I look and it's like 4 minutes. I'm like, done, folks.
Yeah.
Caramelized it. Caramelized it, Nick. Perfectly.
Well, I don't know. I think like you're gonna have to find some other way to be useful on holidays because you're supposed to be grilling, not pressing buttons.
Luckily, it doesn't cook a whole lot. It's only 6 quart, and the meat's not supposed to be stacked on top of each other, obviously, because when you're doing the searing and all that stuff, it's got to be able to do whatever witchcraft that is. But listen, hey, it can cook 3 chicken breasts, 3 pork chops, 3 steaks. If you get like New York strip, it can do a relatively large piece of salmon, like probably about that big, about that wide.
For like a non-party, like just for like a family, it would be A1 then, right?
Oh yeah, like 2 people, it's probably perfect. 3 people, you're probably pushing it. You get past 3, it's not big enough. You need 2. So, gentlemen, men, if you're going out there and you're like, I'm going to get my wife one of these Dreo chef makers, you're done. You're getting divorced. Okay. Yeah. Because at that point, it's like he has no use. He's a waste of space.
Yep. He trained his own replacement.
Exactly. Speaking of replacements, Nick, is our episode today replacing anything? Any knowledge we have about life in general?
No, I don't think so. Well, depends on how we interpret things. It's basically a history lesson.
It's
what today's
lesson.
is. Okay. Yeah, we're going to go
history.
through some history of stuff that definitely happened, and we just have to think about what we think about these things that happened.
That's fair.
Yeah. There's one part. It's 2 mysteries with one family, and one of them is supernatural, perhaps, and the other one's just almost like a crime mystery.
Is this a ghost story? Do I got the right shirt on?
Nope, no ghosts. Unless we're talking about the ghosts of the past.
Dang it, Nick.
Not the
One of these days I'm going to get it right. Though behind me, I do have a UFO thing. I've got a UFO
it's not
picture
UFO.
Thing. Well, I'm curious. Did you create an intro, or are we jumping right into the story?
There is kind of an intro that introduces it, and it will tell us basically what it's about. So let's hear that, and you can tell me if you've heard of this before.
Imagine, if you will, Russia in the year 1905. One royal dynasty has been ruling uninterrupted for more than 300 years. Tsar Nicholas II and his family basked in opulence and grandeur. They dwelled in the resplendent Winter Palace, where gilded halls and dazzling chandeliers echoed their imperial might. Their lives were a tapestry of extravagant banquets, silken garments encrusted with rare jewels, and summers in the enchanting Alexander Palace. Lavish balls, glittering with nobility, and regal hunting expeditions filled their days. Theirs was a fairy tale existence, a dreamscape of luxury and power. Imagine now the doors to a great palace hall opening. The sound of revelry suddenly dies out. Only the howling of the cold winter wind announces the arrival of a new guest. In the door stands the imposing, evil presence of Rasputin, the man who would participate in the end of the royal line once and for all. A man who would usher in one of the greatest mysteries in all of history, the story of the Romanovs.
So, have you heard of the Romanovs before?
No.
Or Rasputin? Or not even Rasputin?
That's better, because I thought it said Rumpelstiltskin at first, and I'm like, that was a real thing.
No, that's a real thing. I wish it was. I would love to do an episode on Rumpelstiltskin. He is fantastic.
Do you think he was based on something? Like folklore of some type? Yeah.
Oh, he's nothing but folklore. Are you talking about Rasputin?
No,
or Rumpelstiltskin.
Rumpelstiltskin.
Oh yeah, he's nothing but folklore. Like I don't think we have to worry about that.
Listen, maybe it's based on something. You don't never know.
a lot of that stuff is, if you go back to like researching about the Brothers Grimm and that kind of stuff. In fact, they've made whole movies, like one called The 10th Kingdom, that shows that all the stories came from an alternate world where all these things were happening. It's pretty cool.
That's cool. You know, it's funny because
but that's not this.
Well, dang it, Nick. I already knew that story. I was doing my podcast for this week, and it's funny because my episode this week was on the Herman family.
Oh, okay.
And it was the inspiration behind the movie Poltergeist.
Did I ever tell you that's my all-time favorite horror movie?
They're here.
Carol Ann,
It's
don't
creepy.
go towards the light, Carol Ann. I love Tangina in that movie.
I always thought that was a fictional movie. I mean, clearly I assumed that they took a whole bunch of different hauntings and pieced it together, but it was mostly the biggest inspiration behind it was that Herman family. So that's why now I'm looking like Rumpelstiltskin. I'm like, hey, maybe it's based on something. We don't know.
In your episode for your podcast for that, do you go into the sort of sub-mysteries that happened during the filming of the movie Poltergeist?
I'm actually thinking about doing a part 2 going into the actual movie.
You really should. That's some interesting stuff.
I was trying to think of if I could turn it into at least a half an hour, 45-minute episode. That's where I try to minimize it. I try not to go less than a half an hour typically.
Yeah. Well, you can definitely, for that story, that could definitely be a 2-parter.
Because I know just about everyone died in that thing.
Oh, a lot of people did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The crew.
Too. Yeah.
It's nuts.
It was pretty tragic. But yeah, so this is completely different than Rumpelstiltskin.
Not Rumpelstiltskin.
This is not Rumpelstiltskin, 100% not Rumpelstiltskin.
And what's the name again?
So the family was... So Russia used to be ruled by people called Tsars, Tsar.
Yeah.
And the Romanov family, for more than 300 years, ruled all of Russia.
Okay.
That big territory was all theirs. And from that opening segment, you can tell that there's going to be a fall. Like, we don't have Tsars anymore. We've got Vladimir Putin instead, and he's not related to them as far as I know. But also, this 300-year history, there's one guy that a lot of scholars sort of blame for the fall of the Romanovs, because they had a pretty tragic ending, and they blame this one guy called Rasputin. Now, he's real famous. I'm surprised you haven't heard of him. He's got some supernatural powers, and that's the supernatural thing about this, and we'll get into it later. But there's been songs written about him, like there's one, I think it's called like Ra Ra Rasputin or something like that. Have you ever heard of the Disney movie Anastasia?
Maybe. Is that the rat one? Was there a rat in that?
I don't recall. There was a bat. A bat was in it.
Oh, like the Goofy bat or whatever?
Yeah, Bartok the bat.
Yeah, I know of the movie. I couldn't tell you a single solitary thing about it.
Well, that's about all these people. Like, this is a pretty huge world event. I'm surprised. Yeah, you are getting a failing mark in history today, at least Russian history.
Listen, I would like to say first and foremost, I am American. Okay. I should not have to know other people's history. I should also not have to know my own history if I choose not to.
Or any history in general.
Listen, history's in the past. We're in the future. Stop being a bunch of yesterday.
Don't you know what they say about people who forget the past? They're doomed to repeat it.
Nah, could never happen.
That's never happened before, and I have no history to base that on. Well, I guess in a way, I'm kind of happy that you don't know any of this, because it's going to be brand new to you. But basically, we're going to go through, we're going to go through a tale that changed the course of history for all of Europe. There's people alive today who can trace their families to these people. Like, they were among the most powerful people on the planet at one point.
This is the Illuminati story. Got it.
Nah, maybe. You never know. But this is basically a huge dramatic tale of a fall of one of the most powerful families. A single person who is at minimal partly responsible for it, and a lot of scholars blame them of being very responsible for it.
So we do mysteries. What's the mystery? The person or the family? I need to know what to look out for.
Okay. So the supernatural is the man. The mystery happens long after he's died and is not related to him, but related to the fate of the family.
Okay. Got you. I just had to know what to look out for, folks. Because if I don't know,
we could separate it. Yeah, definitely question. I know a lot about this one because I found this interesting for a long time. And at the end of it, I'm going to show that even though a lot of people think this is solved, I don't think it is.
Well, Nick knows a whole bunch, and I know a zero. So we're coming in with an open mind.
That's how we usually do it. It's very rare that we have a lot of knowledge on each other's topics.
That is true. I think it's only happened in one episode that we were researching the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which was The Watcher, the episode that just released for us this week.
Right. Which I think that was bound to happen because that's a sensational story. Yeah. And when we were doing it, I was almost thinking, man, maybe occasionally we should both research a story because we were able to piece together stuff that the other person didn't have because we sort of approached it from two different angles.
We did. I wonder if like once a month, maybe we both have like a topic and we both research it and see what we all come up with.
You know what? I like that idea. We should do that.
That might be kind of fun.
All right. And so it is law.
Once a month, boys and girls.
Once a month. End of this next month, we'll do it.
Exactly.
That's kind of exciting.
This will come out. Let me see. It's the 27th. We've got 3 episodes. So this will be the end of next month also.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for you guys in July, you'll be seeing that happen in July.
Yeah. It's a deceptive reality first. See, I did the episode name twice without messing it up. I'm really getting into this.
Man, it's like, listen, it only took you almost a year and you got it down.
Yeah, I know. Almost 50 episodes to get this down.
Man.
Actually, maybe more. Yeah.
So now I know about the protagonist.
Kind of. You know, the antagonist, for sure.
The antagonist, for sure. But the protagonist obviously being the family. That's where the entire story is coming around.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's not just one person.
Family's going to be extra special.
One member, you said?
Is going to become extra special. And I've already kind of given it away because I told you about the movie called Anastasia.
Mm-hmm.
So keep an eye out for that young lady because she might.
It would help if I knew the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how you completely missed all this. You've got young kids. Like what's going on here?
Hate to tell you. Here's what you do. You go, hey, what do y'all want to watch? And then they tell you, and then you go right here. And then you watch what it is that you want to watch. I got YouTube Prime.
You're like, okay, what ghost documentary do you want to watch today? That's your only options. It's only about ghosts.
That would be outstanding. If I could get away with stuff like that, my kids won't let me, man. My kids are.
Oh, I imagine there's like a lot of single parents out there who have made like really radical decisions about how to raise their kids, and that could have been done once before.
Oh, I'm sure. I can tell you that like when I was a kid, the cartoons anyone could watch. I feel like even adults could watch them because there was adult humor.
Right.
Not today. Not today.
Everyone's on the
lookout for it. You got Cocomelon Lane. Yeah, you got Cocomelon Lane.
Okay.
You got Miss Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
You've got whatever the Cocomelon knockoff is.
I don't know what any of this is. You're just like speaking Egyptian to me.
You've read the Bible, right? Or parts of it anyway. The parts that talk about hell, that's it. That's those places.
Okay.
That's those shows. It's just pure hell.
Cocomelon? Oh, yeah. It's
Cocomelon.
I can only guess what it would be.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I got no patience for that. But this was a children's movie from a time when the movies were a little bit scary sometimes. Like, you know how Disney movies used to be that sometimes it was like, for example, Fantasia, there's a devil on a mountain, like throwing stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know Fantasia either?
No.
Oh. I think you are a Mandela effect. I'm accusing you right now. You're from an alternate timeline.
The only recent ones that I can tell you is the one with the frog. Whatever that one was.
Prince?
I watched I don't know. Everything's Cajun in the movies, what I can tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what one that was.
I thought it had a name.
That's a good one. Well,
yeah,
that
I mean,
had
that
some
was a good one. I
scary
watched that
parts
one.
in it.
Yeah,
like
it
they had
did
that
have scary
voodoo
parts.
guy.
That's right.
Yeah.
See?
So
I've seen things.
So, yeah.
When
so
did
that's
that
how
come
Disney
out?
used to be.
Future me, put when it came out right here. I'm pretty sure it's old.
It's a while back, but Disney used to do scary things, and this was one of their historical ones they did, Anastasia. And that was to do with his family. Well, let's skip to the next part and learn a little bit more.
The Russian Imperial Romanov family lived in a paradise of riches. The Tsar, Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra Fyodorovna, and their 5 children, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei, believed wholeheartedly that their whole lives were laid out and it was beautiful. The youngest daughter, Anastasia, would often fantasize aloud about the handsome princes she and her sisters would one day marry. She had fair hair and fine eyes that sparkled with impish laughter in their depths, resembled her beautiful mother more than all the others. Olga, Tatiana, and Maria cherished her and were extremely close. The next in the long line to inherit the throne was the young Alexei, an abnormally kind and thoughtful child who would one day make a fair ruler, all hoped. His tutor, Pierre Gillard, described Alexei as
one of the handsomest babies one could imagine, with his lovely fair curls and his great blue-gray eyes under their fringe of long curling lashes.
Later on, as he grew, his mother's lady-in-waiting was quoted as saying,
"He was a pretty child, tall for his age, with regular features, splendid dark blue eyes with a spark of mischief in them, brown hair, and an upright figure."
Unfortunately, one cruel twist of genetics was the loose thread that would lead to the end of an empire. Alexei, although seemingly normal for the earliest parts of his life, was born with hemophilia B. His hemophilia was so severe that trivial injuries such as a bruise, a nosebleed, or a cut could possibly kill him. In addition, the recurring episodes of illness and long recoveries interfered greatly with Alexei's childhood and education. His parents constantly worried about him, and poor Anastasia, who was the closest to his age, would spend countless nights by his side. It was this that brought Grigory Rasputin to their door. Rasputin, you see, was feared, despised, and hated throughout the land. However, he was also a particularly famous for his abilities as a mystic. During an exceptionally life-threatening hemophilic episode, Alexei was rapidly approaching death's door. Rasputin entered the room and gazed into Alexei's eyes. With a single whispered word to the young prince, the bleeding stopped.
All right. So you get a bit of an idea who Grigory Rasputin is. He's a mystic. He's like what we'd call a wizard or whatever. And this is historically documented. Alexei had hemophilia B, and if you bumped into him or something, he'd start bleeding. Or if he actually cut himself, he could almost bleed to death from any kind of wound like that. Now, the doctors at the time couldn't do anything for him, like bandages were no good, anything like that. So everyone knew about Rasputin. So they called him to there and said, last resort, can you do anything? And he just walked into the room, grabbed the kid by the side of the head, looked in his eyes, and whispered something to him, and the bleeding stopped immediately. And he was able to do this every time it happened.
That's insane.
Yeah, so that's historically documented. Now, I know that's not always proof of something, but that whole family believed wholeheartedly in Rasputin. In fact, everyone did, but they were terrified and scared of him. Because he... Oh yeah, I forgot about this. You can't see the video for the information in these things. It accurately depicts Rasputin. He's got a long, greasy, black, straggly beard, long black hair. He's always scowling. Every picture's of him scowling. He was just... Imagine any evil wizard or bad guy you've ever met. They were or ever seen was probably modeled after this guy.
Okay.
Yep. And he was a prolific womanizer. So you can see why a lot of towns didn't like him. Yep. Yep. Isn't that weird?
Checks out.
Yeah.
Checks out. So he's a mystic. Is that like a warlock? Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's like a wizard or a witch or something like that. Although it's way worse, and you're not going to like what kind of mystic he is when you hear about this later. I'll guarantee it. It's particularly bad. But so this guy, everyone in the country, like, he's famous. Everyone in the country hates him. But now
what was he famous for?
Doing minor miracles in town. He could curse people or heal people, doing different crazy feats. It's so weird
that you're telling this story, because I just watched something. I sent it to Jess this week. It's the first I'd ever heard of it, and it was a ex-satanic. What do you call himself? An ex-satanic something. Something in the satanic realm.
Right.
But he could do all the same things.
Yeah, that happens from time to time. And a lot of people end up calling him, because they do a lot of things that are like miracles that a good person would do. But I think we talked about this in one of our possession episodes before. Like, sometimes the devil does perversions of miracles to try and win people over. A lot of people in Rasputin's day thought this guy is the Antichrist that we've heard so much about.
Oh, wow.
Because he was going to towns and basically bedding everyone's wife, and then curing all the sick people, and doing horrible rituals and making the doctors look like fools. And then he'd be escorted out of town. Half the town love him, half the town hate him. But there was a lot of talk of him being like an Antichrist type figure.
This literally sounds like this dude that I just watched a video on it. He said that there is, and I'm extremely stupid when it comes to this kind of stuff, because again, typically I avoid anything that has to do with some of this stuff because it's
Right.
Witchcraft and all that funky stuff. I kind of try to stay away from some of that. But this guy's story was so interesting that I was like, holy macaroni. So what I didn't know is that there's magic, MAGIC.
ICK.
And then there's one that's ICK. That's
Yeah.
the satanic version.
Yeah. Well,
I had no clue.
I don't know if you'd see, this is a different of semantics, because a lot of people who are doing the ICK version, they don't believe in Satan whatsoever. Some of them do, some of them don't. But,
And he said that. He said the same exact thing.
Yeah, but from like a Christian point of view, that would definitely be satanic. But a lot of these people don't believe in Satan, so it's I guess it's a point of view that you'd call it that, right?
He was a satanic high wizard.
Okay.
And he worked in conjunction with the Illuminati.
Does it say his name? It's not Anton
I bet it
LaVey,
does.
is it?
No, I bet it's in the description. Let me see how do I get to the, here we go. Zachary King.
I don't know if I know about that guy.
And he talked about a lot of stuff I didn't know, which might come into play in this. But he said what happens is with this magic with the ICK on the end, he said that there's people that they believe in Satan, or they don't believe in Satan, but they believe in magic spells.
Right.
And he said what he doesn't understand is those that don't believe in the satanic part, what they don't understand is even though they're using these spells, it's still the cart work of the satanic stuff. They just don't understand what the conduit is.
Yeah.
But he was talking about the difference between like, it's so crazy that we're talking about this right now because it's literally what I just watched, which I'm assuming is probably similar. But he said that there's a difference between a spell and a hex.
Okay.
And like he was going into another subject that I kind of want to go over at some point in time, but I'm kind of scared to because I don't want to go on any lists. But he was talking
I'm
like
not afraid of that.
Grove.
Right. That's where all the presidents show up and pray to the big owl and all that stuff.
Correct.
Oh my goodness.
But he's
owls again.
What?
At the Bohemian Grove, there's a giant owl that they pray to.
Yes.
Man, those owls
That is correct.
always are after us.
Those owls are. I should have worn the owl shirt today. Dang it. I got it too.
Evil.
But he was talking about that doesn't happen once a year. That happens 4 times a year.
Oh, really? Probably.
That's what he says. I mean,
like
I don't know.
related to the seasons, because a lot of magical stuff is related to changing of seasons and stuff.
It could be. The interesting thing that he talked about was he said a spell, a demon will go to the person one time and then back.
Right.
If the person's quote unquote clean, the demon can't do anything.
Right.
If it's a hex, the demon goes and they wait until the person's not clean.
So this is like some kind of sorcerer who are sending them out. So like a hex is like he's saying wait until you can get him, and a spell is like do something now but then retreat kind of thing.
With a hex, it has to be done with blood. There has to be a sacrifice for a hex to be in place.
Okay. Interesting. So this guy was exposing all these secrets. Like, was he a converted guy?
He is.
See, you got to be wary about those guys, though, because you remember we've talked about the satanic panic before.
Yep.
Like, a lot of that was caused by a guy who claimed to be an ex-satanic priest. And he was going on all these, like, televangelical TV shows, and he was making up all this crazy stuff that happens. And, you know, he really whipped people up into a frenzy that put a lot of totally innocent people in jail. So I worry about these guys sometimes. Like, what's their motives?
Well, this guy had 52 million in the bank before he converted, and now he does not have this kind of money. So I don't think that he would be as excited to give up that lifestyle.
That's true. In fact, it sounds like he made a bad move, but financially anyway.
Yeah, super
but
interesting.
What I
story,
thought about
the
other guy, no. In fact, the Satanic Panic is something I'd really love to cover, but it's so twisted and gross that I don't think we could make it into an episode for our podcast.
Like this guy, I would love to cover him. There's just no way. There's so much things that we would have to edit out of that thing.
A lot of perversion stuff in these stories, I find.
A decent amount. The other big thing is when I talk about sacrifices, there are sacrifices. A whole world I had no clue existed. Yeah. I really did not. But yeah, we could never cover that.
Have you ever heard of a fella called Aleister Crowley?
Yes.
Yep. He is sort of like, I think, the most famous person of the magic with the ICK on.
Probably.
There's an interesting story about him and an interaction that he had with, and I don't know if this is true, so I'm going to relate this, and anyone who has more information on it can say differently. But supposedly at one point or another, he was always considered the world's most wicked man, and he really liked that title. And at one point or another, because Hitler was so into the occult and stuff like that, he wanted to join one of Aleister Crowley's groups. So he went to see him in person. And again, I'm not saying this is true. This is just something that I had heard. What he didn't know, because he thought it was going to be a friendly meeting because they got so much in common, and they were into the same kind of stuff. He thought, I'm going to have a great time talking to Aleister Crowley. We're going to be best buds and stuff like that. He's going to be really excited to meet me because I'm the chancellor of a whole country and stuff like that. Well, what he didn't know is Aleister Crowley was fuming mad because they were starting to call this guy one of the most wicked men in the world. Like, they were starting to call this friggin' guy all the things that he had been called before. So apparently Hitler came to visit him. A couple of guys, travel with him all the time, and Aleister Crowley opened the door, saw who it was, spit right between his eyes, and kicked him down the stairs and swore at him and slammed the door. And it just goes to show you a testament to how, if this were true, a testament to how feared Aleister Crowley might have been, that there was no retaliation.
That's crazy.
So, again, I don't know if that happened. That's a story I was told. I've not fact-checked it or anything, so it may be completely
true to me.
Nonsense. But we can be corrected if it's not. I think it's a fun story if it is true.
Oh, it's a fun story for sure.
Yeah, but anyway.
Now, the guy we're talking about now, is he of the same levels as far as like this whole magic thing? That's what I was trying to get at.
He was incredibly famous. He is incredibly famous now. Now, people don't give him the same kind of respect that Aleister Crowley has, but this guy was... He would go to a town, people knew who he was when he got there. He did all kinds of horrible things, did all kinds of really scary rituals, and then he'd balance it off by doing a whole bunch of healings. Like, he even was able to supposedly bring people back from recent death, all that kind of stuff. And he just traveled throughout the land doing it because all the good he did didn't usually balance out all the bad he did, so they'd run him to the edge of town and say, yeah, be on your way. Here's some money and here's some food. Have a good life. Don't come back.
Man, I wish we could bring back some dead people now. Only because
I know.
I want to question, like, you was gone for like 4 days. Where were you?
Yeah.
Like, what were you doing?
That's probably something we're not supposed to know.
No, for sure. We're not supposed to know. But doesn't
I
mean
want
I'm
to
not
know
curious.
it too. Yeah, I want to know it.
I just want to know what's on the other side.
Yeah. I mean,
Like, is it another
That's-
dimension?
like I've said before, that's one thing I'm sort of jealous with religious folks about is like, you guys kind of know, or you kind of believe or whatever. So it probably isn't as worrisome as it is to me, because I don't know.
Oh, yeah. But I think to a degree, though, you still believe there's something on the other side. It's
Oh,
not
absolutely.
like you think it's empty, so it's not like it's horrific. Versus
No.
us, we think we're going to another world, basically. I mean, it's this world. Obviously, the Bible talks about this being our final resting spot, but in a new body and stuff like that. You believe the same thing. And I think that's why both of us kind of want to get into this ghost hunting thing a little bit.
Yeah.
So we can try to throw our hat in and trying to explain what's out there from the paranormal side also.
Yeah.
And it shows validation to both of us.
Exactly. I mainly would just feel better if I knew that the people I cared about would be looked after this life. And I feel like, yeah, probably so, but I've got that doubt in me that like probably hardcore religious people don't carry. Like they probably don't think about it all the time.
Yeah. No, agreed.
But that's one thing I'm a little envious of. But and if I were to see some kind of magic like Rasputin was doing, I might be more convinced than ever. So I'd like to see some of that kind of thing too. But it was well known. No one doubted it. Now, what they didn't like at all was him having the ear of the royal family. Because they were in, I don't know if they saw it or not, but they were in kind of a compromised position. Because they only had one son. And that son could fall down and bleed to death.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So was it, I'm assuming it's probably something like, let's use, for example, if we look at the royal family of today.
Right.
With like Charles and, which by the way, did you see the painting of Charles?
That's totally, if you remember from Ghostbusters, Gozer the Gozerian, the painting there. Or
oh yeah.
Totally that. Like, could he have made it any more creepy?
Oh yeah, but did you see the actual, there's a picture somewhere. I'll see if I can put it here. But if you take the portrait and then you lay another one beside it inverted,
it's like a devil or something. Yeah, I saw that. I can't help but feel like this is intentional. Like even the painting on its own, is that not an evil person's painting?
It's creepy. It looks creepy.
Why would he do that?
Like, I don't know why they'd want it. I don't know.
Actually, I can't say that. Ever. I would want one of those of me. And maybe he's just a dude like I am.
I mean,
maybe he's a creepy dude.
It's kind of like, remember Kate Middleton?
Mm-hmm.
When they had announced that their child was born, she was wearing a very famous dress that, you know what? I think future me, if you think about it, put it right here also.
Right.
That's going to take us a completely different direction of the podcast, but I'm going to post that picture and I'm going to post what it's from. Y'all check it out and tell me how creepy that is too. There's something with the whole royal family. I don't know what it is, but there's definitely something up with the royal family.
Well, you're going to learn something about them at the end of this podcast.
The royal families in general?
Yep. The English royal family that might give you a less positive view on them if you had a positive view to begin with.
Oh yeah, I don't care. I'm a stupid American. I only care about what happens.
Yeah, you guys rebelled against them.
Yeah, we rebel against everything. We're like, listen, we don't want no more tea.
Yeah, that's why you guys tried to attack us. Do you remember that? We remember that, you know.
Listen, hey, you guys was in the way. It's not our fault.
Yeah,
not our fault.
We beat you that time. That's the last time in like history we'd ever be able to do that, but we beat you.
Blind squirrel finds an acorn every once in a while, Nick.
That's true. I always like that saying, a broken clock is right twice a day.
That is true also.
Well, we'll get on to the next part, which is more about Rasputin, but I just want to explain something like that hemophilia B was common in a lot of royal families because they often would only marry into other people from different parts of the family. So that was sort of a genetic disorder that was developing amongst royal family members. But he had it the worst. In fact, if
Egyptians.
Yeah, if he had children, the chances were very high that they'd be equally as bad. Especially if he married someone that maybe he was related to. But the next part tells us even more about Rasputin.
Grigory Rasputin was an interesting character, often described as a mystical and mysterious figure. He cut an imposing presence with his piercing blue eyes, unruly beard, and a demeanor that oscillated between serene and intense. Born in Siberia, Rasputin rose to infamy in the early 20th century Russia, becoming a controversial confidant to the Romanov family. His reputation was built on his purported healing abilities and uncanny influence over Tsarina Alexandra, who believed Rasputin could alleviate the suffering of her hemophiliac son, Alexei. Stories of Rasputin's other mystical powers abound as well. He was said to possess the power of prophecy, allegedly foreseeing events with startling accuracy. One famous tale recounts how Rasputin, with a mere touch and fervent prayer, seemingly halted the death of townsfolk when doctors had failed to do the same. Other accounts tell of Rasputin's ability to hypnotize and captivate people with his gaze, convincing even skeptics of his supernatural prowess. Whispers of Rasputin's darker magic circulated as well. Some claimed he had the power to heal or curse at will, invoking spells that could manipulate fate and fortune. The source of Rasputin's powers were rooted in Russian Orthodox Christianity, but his practices were unconventional and mystically inclined. He believed in direct, ecstatic experiences with God and was rumored to be influenced by the Caelists, a secret sect known for its ecstatic rituals. This belief stated that one must first get God's attention before praising him, a heretical belief that was extreme and surely would be shunned today as it was back then.
So does it surprise you to find out that he was some manner of Christian?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No. It so you heard the part about he was part of the Caelus sect, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think the narration did a good job of explaining this, but the Caelist believed, so they were Christian, they were, they did believe in the same God as everyone else, but they had a strong belief that with so many people in the world, with so many things going on, with such a big universe, that in order for your prayers to be heard, you had to do drastic things to get God's attention. So you had to basically bring a lot of sins upon yourself, like doing mass adultery in a town, or, killing someone or harming someone or anything like that. And then they thought once they had done enough of that, they had sort of a direct line, like God was paying attention to them, and then they could perform their miracles. And that's what they thought the sources of their power was. So he was doing horrible things. horrible things. But somehow that granted him the power to do these other things. And that's what their story was.
I think that's a bunch of hooey.
I think everyone would probably agree with that. Like, that's pretty childish understanding of the relationship people have with their gods, right?
Well, not only that, like the only time that I've ever acknowledged the fact that you have to get someone's attention like that is when it's satanic.
Right.
The satanic belief, you have to get Satan's attention by providing him some type of an offering.
Yeah. These guys sort of thought like we could get to the verge of bringing down wrath upon ourselves and then go into like feverish prayers like, please hear me, blah, 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 blah. And what it kind of remind me of is, kids, when they're like, any attention is good attention. So they'll act out just to get the parents' attention, and then they can get what they want after that. That's how I kind of looked at their belief system. But I think they were manipulated.
Oh, for sure. Big time. Because here's the thing, right? When you think about it, at the end of the day, right? Let's say that their logic was used to try to get God's attention. If it got God's attention, that's the good luck with that one, my friend.
Yeah, it's not the kind of attention you want.
Yeah, there's no, okay, well now we're getting down on our hands and knees and asking for forgiveness. And hey, while I'm got you here, can I ask you for X, Y, and Z? God's going to be like, no. That's not happening. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, the vast majority of things that was asked from the disciples were never granted.
Right. They were definitely on better terms.
I would assume they're on pretty good terms. I mean, they walked around with the Son incarnate. I mean, I would assume you got kind of a, how do they phrase that? A foot in the door.
Right.
I think that's your best opportunity. There were so many people that had ailments back then that, they would try to, if anything, do whatever they needed to have that go away.
Right. And
God never granted any of those abilities. So I don't know. Nope. Yeah. His thought process a little skewed.
Yeah, it seems to be. Now you would kind of think though, that he is doing the miracles. Like he's showing off some abilities, and you'd think that might work to convert people, because people might see that and say, yeah, you know what? He sort of has God on his side there. But you know what? I think deep down, people can tell the difference between like a real miracle and some kind of evil plot or something like that. I don't think charlatan. I think he was doing these things, but I think the source of what he was doing and the intention behind what he was doing wasn't so good.
You know what that reminds me of biblically? It's kind of like when Moses was going to what were they called? The pharaohs, right? And he was basically like, hey, this needs to stop or we're going to bring these plagues upon you. And one of the big things was they brought one of their magicians out, and he had a staff and he slammed on the ground. It turned into a snake.
Right.
They had quote unquote magical abilities also. But then when you had Moses and he slams his staff on the ground, it turned into a snake, and then it ate their snakes.
Right.
I mean, kind of makes you lean back and go, well, magic was capable back then.
Yeah, but where does it come from?
Where did the source? Yeah.
Right. And I think
absolutely
people sort of they feel it inside if a miracle is coming from a good source or if it's coming from a bad source, because they really didn't make many converts. That was a small heretical sect. And imagine that you had the proof of miracles right in front of you, but something was just telling you, no,
Something's off.
that's not right. Let's get him out of here. Like, let's not tick him off or anything.
Right.
Because we've seen that he can
push
do
the
stuff.
envelope.
Right. And he's saying that he's getting this from our God, but we don't feel like our God would give this guy these powers.
I'm telling you, this story sounds so much like that ex-satanic worshiper, because he always went into cities trying to give the front of being the good guy.
Yeah.
That was his entire
people can
thing.
tell. There's a good reason.
He was able to trick a lot of churches.
Oh, yeah?
He went into cities to screw up churches. That was his main job.
Oh, okay. Did he think he had a lot of success?
A lot of success. In fact, he gave the blueprint on how to take down any church.
Really? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess people back then were a little more thoughtful about this than they are today, because they did not get a lot of converts. Now, mind you, to get the miracles, they were doing horrible things to these people, so they probably didn't like that either.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like,
that's interesting. It's interesting.
Rasputin was said to have like slept with 6,000 women or something like that. He was like, I mean, people say he was scary looking. He smelled awful. He was drunk a lot of the time. Like, he was absolutely disgusting, but he had that power to mesmerize people. And they'd seen that happen through all their villages, and they didn't want him anywhere near their wives. And now he's the closest friend and confidant to the Tsarina, which is basically the queen of their whole country. Like, she trusts him completely. She wants to make him happy, because if he leaves, their only heir to the whole dynasty will die.
He's gonna die anyway.
Well, it's kind of a situation. It's kind of a situation.
You know what I always find? You can buy evil for so long, but you can't buy evil forever.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were in a rough spot, but they thought the guy was fantastic. Like, he was keeping their son alive, all this kind of stuff. And now he had free run of the capital. Like, he could do whatever he want, go wherever he want. No one could touch him at this point. So people are getting very unhappy with Rasputin, and they're getting very unhappy with the Romanovs because of this and some other things. So it's not good.
I have to send you this interview with this guy, because if you listen to that, it's almost like a new age version of exactly what you're explaining with this guy.
Well, these guys pop up from time to time, and there's a lot of people who have sort of modeled themselves after Rasputin. Like, you might have not have heard of him, but maybe once you see him, like, he's incredibly famous. Like, I could go to most people and say, have you heard of Rasputin? And they might not know the history of him, but they'll know what he looks like. And they'll be like, yeah, I heard this song about him. I saw him in this movie, all this kind of stuff. Like, he left a huge mark on humanity, basically. And there are people who want to be like Rasputin.
Well, I just might be behind on the peeps.
Wow.
Like I say, dumb American Nick.
Well, I mean, not at all. I mean, if you think about it, how much do you want to know someone who is like corrupting your faith system? Like,
for sure.
Probably you wouldn't want to know that much. Well, and I apologize for making you learn about this now, but
you're corrupting me, Nick.
I'm corrupting
How do you spell his name?
Rasputin.
Oh, that dude is creepy looking.
Isn't he?
Dude, he is creepy. He kind of looks like Aleister Crowley a little bit.
A little bit. This guy was maniacal. I find like in a lot of horror movies and stuff, people are almost like modeled after him. He was the original evil wizard, I would say.
It's crazy.
But I feel like all through history, like you've said, these guys pop up now and then.
Yeah.
And they're
that's insane to me.
They're deceptive, and they kind of give you what you want, but not exactly. And sometimes the cost is really high.
Well, the cost in it is always expensive.
Yeah.
like it's all, I don't care who you are. It's always expensive. The crazy part is the satanic guy that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He kind of looks like that guy a little bit.
He sort of does, doesn't he?
He kind of does. I wonder if he's
Maybe
like he was a reincarnation.
Maybe Rasputin lived, and that is him.
Maybe he did.
And I'll tell you, there's a good reason why I say that. Would you like to hear the next part of Rasputin's tale?
You can't say stuff like that, Nick, and not have me want to go.
Well, that's the goal. That's the goal.
Though for a time Rasputin returned the family to their carefree times, it is often true that the nobility of a country is blind to the changes in the land that they rule. While most peasants found the Tsar and his family generally likable, the political instability and the suffering brought on by the Russian Empire's involvement in World War I had caused many revolts and demonstrations. Historians often suggest that it was indeed Rasputin's scandalous and sinister reputation that helped discredit the Tsarist government, the proverbial nail in the coffin. Rasputin simply had to go. The attempts to kill Rasputin are legendary, highlighting both his resilience and the desperation of his enemies. The most famous assassination effort occurred in December of 1916, orchestrated by a group of nobles led by Prince Felix Yusupov. Initially, they lured Rasputin to Yusupov's palace with the promise of meeting Yusupov's wife. They fed him cakes and wine, laced with cyanide, but to their shock, the poison had no effect. Panicking, they shot Rasputin repeatedly, again to little effect, even allowing him an attempt to flee. In a further bid to ensure his death, they beat him savagely, but could not seem to end his life no matter how hard they tried. Finally, they wrapped his body in a carpet and threw him into the icy Neva River, so he could not swim away or float. When his body was recovered, it was found that he had water in his lungs, indicating that he was still alive when submerged. This dramatic and prolonged assassination attempt solidified Rasputin's almost supernatural reputation, even in death. After their powerful ally was taken care of, the enemies of the Tsar, known as the Bolsheviks, forced the Tsar to give up the throne. His entire family was then ushered into a train and exiled to Siberia. Without understanding what was happening, little Anastasia and her sisters pressed their faces against the glass as their home faded into distance and memory.
So this is one of the things that Rasputin was most famous for. He was nigh unkillable.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So the poisoning, maybe that just didn't go well. They shot him, I think it was like 16 times. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to leave now. Really, not much effect there. They started
to be fair. 50 Cent did the same thing.
Maybe he is one of these guys.
He might be. Listen, 50 Cent was like, oh, ouch. Oh, oh, stop. Oh, hit him in the mouth. Then he raps better.
Yeah, really. Was 50 Cent's all at once, or was it multiple shootings?
It was the same. He got shot 8 times at the same time.
That's crazy.
The same instance. He still has a bullet lodged underneath his tongue. That's why he now raps with like a slur. That's how he became famous.
That's crazy.
Yeah. before that all happened, he didn't have that. It's almost like it's like an accent's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
He didn't have that accent. If you listen to his first album that ever came out,
Right.
much cleaner rapper.
Oh.
He got shot.
Right.
He gets that little bit of like an accent, kills it.
Hmm.
So he's basically the 50 Cent of that time period, which
Yeah,
is
basically, but
way
more.
before 50 Cent.
Well, think how good this
But
guy
more.
could rap because all the other stuff that's happening to him. So
Yeah.
he's given an elephant's dosage of cyanide, and he's like, okay, because they lured him there. He was going to meet that guy's wife, and he was like, yeah, can't wait to meet this
Fresh
guy's
meat.
wife. Yeah, exactly.
Gonna be 6,003.
Yeah, that's what he was thinking. They got there and they fed him just a elephant's helping of cyanide, and he's like, man, you got some good cooks in this town. So where's the wife at? And they're like, okay, enough's enough. So the guy pulls out a pistol, shoots him in the chest. And he's like, okay, but the wife? So everyone pulls out pistols and they start blasting him. And it was something like 16 times. And he's just like, well, I'm feeling not wanted here. So he gets up to leave. And then they start to panic. Okay. Because they're like, this is not good. So they grab clubs and table legs and they start beating him just horribly. And, there's a whole bunch of them there, and it's just not getting the job done. He's like, okay, I'm getting mad now. So he's still trying to leave. So they roll him up in a carpet. So imagine this. He's been beaten senseless for a half hour. He's full of an elephant's dose of cyanide. He's got 16 bullet holes in him. They wrap him up in a carpet. They throw him in this frozen river. His body washes around there, and a little while later they recover it. And what do they found? Oh, he was still alive under there for a while. He filled his lungs completely with water. But in the end, they got him. Now, here's the thing. If you'd wanted to bury the power of one of your enemies, you're not going to say all these ways that he thwarted you.
No, you would not.
You would not. And if they don't say, no one's going to know. He would have just disappeared if it wasn't for them saying. So this guy was rough and he was powerful. So there was something going on there for sure.
Oh, there would have had to have been.
Yep.
Like that kind of stuff's just not going to happen on a whim.
No. Like you can't will yourself not to die from all this stuff. He had some kind of source of his power. But I think we both agreed it probably wasn't from where he wanted people to think it was coming from.
No. He was just using that as a rouge.
Yeah. Like he was one of the deceivers, someone who's trying to lead people astray or throw doubts into their mind or something like that. Or he's the guy who stumbled upon some way that he could get everything he wanted in life at the cost of whoever else. And he went with it.
Right.
Which sort of accomplishes the same job anyway, as if he was purposely.
Same exact thing.
Yep. So
doesn't matter how you change it up. It's still the same end result.
Yep. Same end result. Now, unfortunately, the Romanov family, they had made a couple, like everyone generally thought they were good. They didn't have a big problem with them. They liked them. They knew their kids were nice, stuff like that. But the people had kind of been suffering because Russia had participated in World War I in a way that really cost them dearly. So the people were kind of suffering. Now, they could have probably let that slide. They were having some protests and stuff. But then Rasputin gets in their ears, and it sort of gives power to these other political parties that want them gone. Like they want power. They've had enough of this. dynasty where you get to rule just because you were born to a certain family. And that was the Bolsheviks. So they rounded up, after Rasputin's gone, they're like, you know what, we've got to nip this in the bud. Strike while the iron's hot. They rounded up the whole family, put them on a train to exile in Siberia. So that's the end of the Rasputin cycle there. He's gone. But now they're moving them out of their kingdom. So the kids don't really know what's going on, which is kind of sad because they don't know anything but, you know, amazing parties, beautiful gowns. Before they got on the train, the mother had them sew jewels into their dresses so that they could smuggle some stuff with them. And that's going to become important because them sewing jewels into their dresses is sort of what sparks the next mystery.
Well, it's a good thing we're sparking one because I'm like, this guy's dead. I don't know how we can extend this storyline anymore.
Yeah, well, he's out of it. He's gone. But he's caused a 300 and something year empire to crash down around these poor Romanovs. Yeah. But at least they got each other. They're all on a train. They're heading out to Siberia. They've smuggled some riches with them. Everything's great. Well, not great. Everything sucks. Everything sucks.
I was going to say, I don't think it'd be too great.
But at least they're together. And they're going to be fine, right? They'll bounce back.
Always. That's how all of our stories end up, Nick.
Yeah, it's going to be fine. Are you ready to sort of move into the next part of the mystery?
Absolutely.
All right, let's roll the footage.
The night was dark, a heavy blanket of clouds shrouding the moonlight. The Romanovs had been moved from the train and had been kept for days in a merchant's house by the name of Ipatiev. Inside the Ipatiev house, the Romanovs were roused from their fitful sleep by the sound of heavy footsteps and terse orders. Nicholas, Alexandra, their children, and the few remaining loyal servants were herded into a dimly lit basement, the air thick with dread and confusion. Nicholas held Alexandra's hand, his face a mask of calm for his family's sake. The children, pale and trembling, clung to each other. Anastasia, her wide blue eyes darting around the room, sensed something far worse than another relocation. The walls seemed to close in, the room shrinking with the weight of impending doom. Yakov Yurovsky, the commandant, entered the room with a group of armed men. His face was hard, betraying no emotion.
Nicholas Alexandrovich, your relatives have tried to save you. They have failed. You must now face the consequences.
Before Nicholas could respond, Yurovsky raised his revolver and fired. Chaos erupted as the firing squad joined in, their bullets tearing through the confined space. The thunderous noise, the screams, and the acrid smell of gunpowder created a nightmare tableau. In the melee, Anastasia fell to the ground, feeling a sharp pain in her side. Blood spread quickly, but whether it was hers or someone else's, she couldn't tell. Her mind raced. A desperate instinct for survival was kicking in. She remembered the secret compartments sewn into their clothing, stuffed with family jewels. Could they offer some protection? As the gunfire ceased, the room fell into a haunting silence. The executioners, believing their grim task complete, began to check the bodies. Anastasia lay still, her breath shallow and controlled. She felt a rough hand checking for a pulse. She willed herself to remain motionless, her heart pounding so loudly she feared it would give her away.
She's dead,
one of the men declared, moving on to the next victim. When the executioners left, Anastasia dared to open her eyes. The sight was horrific. Her family lay around her, lifeless. Tears streamed down her face, but she forced herself to focus. She had to escape. Painfully, she pushed herself up, her side burning. The jewels had indeed absorbed some of the bullet's impact, saving her life, but leaving her wounded. She crawled toward a small window at the far end of the basement, previously overlooked in the chaos. Summoning every ounce of strength, she pried it open and squeezed through, the rough edges scraping her skin. Outside, the cold night air hit her like a shock. She had no time to think, only to move. Stumbling through the shadows, she headed towards the nearby woods, guided by sheer willpower, in the dim light of dawn breaking on the horizon.
So it wasn't good. I think we figured that out right away.
Yeah,
But-
that one I figured out relatively quickly in.
Yeah, but through sheer luck, one of the pouches of jewels that they had sewn into the dress happened to be where she got hit. So it just grazed her.
Now I'm assuming in the Disney movie they left all this out.
They showed it in a not visual way. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, it was said that the person who was checking the family members was someone who was like, he was sort of a younger fellow, and he wasn't super into executing people in this way. So he was just checking them quickly. And he later claimed that he knew that she was alive and says she wasn't because he was somewhat loyal to the family. So you can do with that what you will. But that
sounds like a lie.
Yeah, so that was sort of the fate of the Romanov family. That's the end of the whole dynasty there. Except it seems like there's one heir, which is Anastasia, that was left. And this was the whole premise of the Disney movie, is there was a girl, Anastasia, who became like a little homeless girl, but she was actually the heir to the vast fortunes and land and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if there's too much to unpack here. Do you have questions about what happened here?
No, I think I understand everything that happened. The thing that I find, I guess, confusing, it was like, where would we go from here? Obviously, all this stuff occurred. There's no real mystery with this part so far.
No, there's kind of not. There is one thing I should clarify, though. The guy came down and he said, your family has attempted a rescue attempt and failed. So now you've got to pay the price. That was actually a lie. No one had attempted to rescue them. The family of the Romanovs was the British royal family. And they were given the option to offer them amnesty instead of them going to Siberia. All they had to do was ask, and it would have been done. And this is on the record.
Interesting.
Even they say that this happened. They thought about it for a weekend and decided not to intervene. They decided not to save all those kids and their, what was it, cousins. So the
Bunch of doggone savages.
Yep, they decided not to. They had breakfast on Saturday, and by Sunday morning they had decided not to help them. All they had to do was say the word. It wouldn't have caused any political problems. It wouldn't have caused any strife whatsoever. They would have just got them on the train and moved them to England or wherever. And for some reason, they decided not to.
That's crazy.
And that's their own admission. They have admitted to that. They decided not to. And the reasons were never given. They just said, It was discussed at length over the weekend, and it was decided that they wouldn't intervene.
That's crazy to me.
Yep.
Wow, that's a heck of a family right there.
That is a heck of a family, and it will become even more apparent why. I think we're going to be able to do this. We definitely can do this in one episode. But let's listen to the next part, and you'll see why it's kind of a mystery.
At least 10 women have since claimed to be Anastasia Romanov, offering varying stories as to how she had survived. Anna Anderson, the best known possible Anastasia, first surfaced publicly between 1920 and 1922, telling the story of escape that we just heard. Anna Anderson never gave up her claim until her death in 1984. Even her husband truly believed her to be the missing heiress. There were reasons to believe her claims, for she knew more about the Romanov family than any casual observer could know. When she first made her claims, only a few knew about the Bolshevik execution of the family, since the media was nothing like it is today. She was one of those few who did. Plus, she had an unusual scars that she believed resulted from the skirmish with the Bolshevik and matched her escape story closely upon inspection. Another reason people question the truth is that Maria Rasputin claimed that Anna Anderson was the real Anastasia Romanov. Maria Rasputin was the daughter of Grigory Rasputin. Maria was only 3 years older and was a constant playmate of Anastasia. When hearing of Anna Anderson's claim, she asked to meet her privately. After a meeting that lasted several hours, Maria proclaimed that Anna Anderson was, in fact, the real Anastasia. Other surviving relatives of Anastasia also supported this claim. Could this be the escaped heiress?
Right. So basically, that whole previous segment where we find out what happened in the basement, how she escaped, all this stuff, this came from a lady called Anna Anderson, who claims she was Anastasia. There was 10 other people who claimed to be Anastasia over the years. Like, it was quite in fashion to try and claim that heritage. But she was the only one who, when Anastasia was little for years, that Rasputin was with him, one of Rasputin's daughters played with her nonstop, constant playmate. And she met her for a couple hours and she was like, this is Anastasia. And one of the
That's crazy.
aunts from the royal family, not the ones who made the decision, but one of the ones who were younger, said, this is Anastasia. Also, the other part is she knew about the basement execution before the public knew about it. So it looks real strongly that she could have been the escaped Anastasia. Wherever she went. Sorry, go ahead.
That's my vote.
Yeah.
She's got my vote.
They, by the general populace, they were pretty well liked. So anywhere she went, if the little daughter of the Romanovs showed up, they would have hit her. Almost certainly. And they probably would have given her a name that's easy to remember. Instead of Anastasia, we'll call you Anna.
Right. That's insane.
So it's real convincing that she's the real deal. All the other ones, they sort of were able to, dismiss because they had information wrong. They couldn't get anyone to back up their stories who had met Anastasia, all that kind of stuff. But there was something about Anna Anderson that really, really caught people's attention. Her husband believed it wholeheartedly. Like, he was so convinced, and she lived with her most of her adult life.
That's crazy. It's crazy to think that that's even a possibility.
Yeah. It gets...
And you survive that.
Yeah, you survive that just by pure luck that you've sewn jewels into your dress. Yeah. It turns a killing blow into a graze. It so happens that maybe not one of the people are sort of sympathetic to your family, and they check your pulse when your heart's racing, and they're just like, oh no, she's done for. Then you run off into the Siberian night. Definitely you only make it to another house or something, and they take you in. And then you go on from there.
What a story.
Oh, it's not even done yet. Like, there is a whole segment of people who really want us to think that everyone died in that basement. Like, it's
so they're saying
important.
that's all.
They're saying it's all
facetious.
Nonsense. Yeah.
It's all nonsensical.
Yeah. And they present some what they call proof to show us that it couldn't be. Would you like to hear that part?
Well, at this point, they better do an awful lot of selling, because that last one sound awful tempting.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I know you're a grown manly man, but you should check out that movie sometime. I think it's actually a pretty good movie. But
if my kids ever want to watch it, I will not pay attention to my cell phone.
Oh, there you go. That's the best we can hope for.
The belief that Anastasia survived the execution of her family in 1918 persisted for decades, fueled by rumors and the claims of imposters. However, several key pieces of evidence have now attempted to establish that Anastasia died with her family. In 1991, a mass grave was discovered near Ekaterinburg, containing the remains of Tsar Nicholas II, Tsarina Alexandra, and 3 of their daughters. DNA testing confirmed their identities. However, 2 bodies were missing, believed to be those of Alexei and one of the daughters, sparking speculation that Anastasia might have survived. In 2007, a second grave was found nearby, containing the remains of 2 more individuals. DNA analysis confirmed these were the remains of Tsarevich Alexei and one of his sisters, likely Maria. This discovery would account for all members of the Romanov family. Extensive DNA testing, including comparisons with living relatives of the Romanovs, is said to provide conclusive proof that all the family members were accounted for and that none had survived the execution. However, detractors claim that it is in the best interest of the entire Russian power structure and oligarchy to believe this and that the above records and findings have been falsified. Russia is commonly believed to be run by corrupt regimes. If Anastasia were alive, she would reasonably be entitled to well over $300 billion, much land and properties. In fact, the entire reason the Romanovs were eliminated, even after giving up the throne, was because they would still have had legal rights to reclaim it. King George of England, who is blood relation to the Romanov family, even decided to withdraw his offer for amnesty to the family. This could cause huge problems for those who benefit from Anastasia being in the grave. Can we trust the evidence provided by those with most to lose?
Nope, didn't sell me. I think it was Anna.
Yeah, me too. So here's the thing. A bunch of stuff happened. When the new power structure come into play into Russia, like this is the Putin government and stuff, like he moved in and out of power a couple times. But when he first got in, they miraculously find the mass grave. So they're like, yep, that's them. And then they're like, well, there's 2 missing. So a couple years later, they're like, oh, yeah, we found 2 more. Mind you, this is almost 100 years ago. And they're like, yeah, DNA test proves accurate. So you're telling me that the British royal family submitted to DNA testing for the Russian government? Like,
yeah, that never happened.
Seems unlikely. It's just a weird coincidence that they found it all during this time. The whole time of the KGB, they never found any of this. Like all the other, people in power never found any of this. Then this new government comes in, they find all this, and they're like, yeah, everyone's dead. Ann Anderson definitely can't claim any of this money and power. Not to mention the cousin of Anastasia, Rasputin's daughter, suddenly at the same time retracted their claims, and they're like, oh, we were mistaken. We've been so sure it was her for all these years, but suddenly we're not so sure. And it happened without them spending any more time with her. Just out of the blue, they both retracted. Now...
Yeah, there's no way in a million years. That would have never happened.
Right. So, in the narrative, I put that the reason... So they gave up the crown, all the power. They allowed themselves to be exiled. It was over. Why did they have to die? Why was there that ruse about someone tried to rescue you and now you've got to pay for it? Because they could have legally contested for the throne and all their properties back. They could have said, hey, things have died down a little bit. I want to go to the courts. I want a jury of my peers. I want that $40 billion back, or what have you. I want all my lands back. So they had to stop them from doing that. So,
yeah, when you look at this story as a whole, it's a story that we see repeated in history over and over again, where typically someone's just trying to get rid of someone and they're doing it for their own good.
Right.
This is just another case of that. Unfortunately, I believe that Anna was for sure the rightful person.
Right.
And now what exactly happened to Anna as time progressed?
She just got old, lived with her husband until she passed away. She never got to contest or do any other proof or anything of the sort.
So everything died with her.
Eventually, once she sort of had all the proof and all the others didn't, it sort of started to peter out. Like, women weren't coming forward and saying they were Anastasia anymore. She sort of stopped all that because she was so believable. But no, most people took her seriously, but in the established courts and stuff, they just wouldn't look at it. They were like, this is the evidence that Russia's provided us. That's it. You can't be her. Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's crazy. What a crazy story.
Can you imagine this, though? I had a little thought, because it mentioned specifically in my research how much she would be entitled to. And it was $40 billion, not including all the land in Russia. So all the crown land in Russia would be revert back to her. If Anna Anderson was Anastasia, $40 billion at least, and almost all the crown land of Russia would be hers. Now, you think, who's in power right now? Vladimir Putin. How much would it destabilize him if there was someone in Russia who owned most of the land mass and had double the value that you did? He's only got 20 billion at his disposal. She'd have 40 billion, which probably would have to come out of
She would have never made it.
Right. She would have never made it. He couldn't allow that in his country. And the royal family has even less fortune.
Right.
And
because unfortunately, when you deal with Vladimir Putin, rivals don't live long.
They don't. And frankly, rivals to the royal family have problems and accidents sometimes too.
Yeah. I mean, if we're being a buck, here in the United States, when things aren't going real well, people's been known to,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You've seen the new speculation on JFK, I'm assuming.
I haven't actually.
They're saying that there's a video showing that the driver turned around with a pistol and popped him that last shot.
Jeez. Man, it took all that time to get that out. That's crazy.
They're saying it, but a lot of the video, there's only one video and it's so grainy because of when it happened. But what they're saying is the way that he got shot was almost as though it would have came from that driver in the front because of the way he fell.
I've seen that before. It was very odd. Like, I'm not an expert on how people get shot, but it seemed very counterintuitive, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
Yeah.
There might be something interesting for old Deceptive Reality to cover at some point.
It may be.
As long as people within Deceptive Reality doesn't go on any lists.
That they aren't already on, or?
After this episode, we might be on one, Nick. I'm not sure. We talked about the Illuminati.
I kind of badmouthed the royal family there, and like we're under their reign, so I don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah, correct.
Oh, well.
Bert did not.
Yeah. Well, you got she ain't like they ain't your boss anymore.
No, but listen, hey, they got connections.
That's true. That's true. But they're the biggest world dynasty, and the last one only because Anna Anderson couldn't claim her heritage. So that benefits them.
That's crazy. Very crazy story.
Yeah, a lot of twists and turns. This was 2 mysteries in one. It was a 2-for-1 mystery.
It was a twofer. Yeah. Doggone twofer. Listen, usually we only cover one mystery, and sometimes we split it up over 2 podcasts.
That's right.
This time, we did 2 mysteries in one podcast. Y'all are welcome.
That's efficiency. We're becoming efficient.
Everyone thank Nick. That's right. Thank Nick for this one.
Nicholas Rasputin.
What says you out in podcast land? Thanks. What says you out in podcast land? What do you think happened? There's 2 mysteries. Do you believe everything that happened with our antagonist at the very beginning? Do you believe that Anna is the rightful heir of all the goodies? That's what we need to know in the comments down below. Also, if you've not liked the doggone video yet, hit the doggone like button. What are you
waiting for?
I get tired of telling y'all
this.
What are you
waiting for?
Yeah, what are you doggone waiting on?
Like, we need this. Come on.
This is how our podcast grows. It's folks like y'all to get us there. Also, in the comment down below, don't call us creepy. I mean, we know we're creepy. You don't need to tell us, though.
Calling myself Nicholas Rasputin probably didn't help that scenario any. But.
That's fine. It's fine. Yeah. But hopefully y'all enjoyed this podcast. We definitely appreciate you stopping by. We appreciate all the comments, all the love that we do get. Until we see y'all on the next podcast, goodbye.
See you next time.